We are live.
Yay! I am old new dude. He is,
Richard York, Astro's Trueborn son.
and this is Sansa One, A Storm of Swords Friday. I apologize for the less light than last time. It's kind of cloudy here.
Yeah, here too.
I'm still working on the lighting in this bedroom. I got a Daryl Dixon lamp that I bought my wife. I might have to break that thing out to give me some extra light in here, but uh, I don't know if she'd be happy about me stealing it for my man wall. But that's okay. Uh, without any further ado, we will start with the brains of the operation, which is Richard. He will say what he saw in the chapter, and then I'll jump in with my stupid stuff every now and then. So take it away, Richard.
Thank you, sir. Storm 6, Sansa 1. The Tyrells look to marry up again, and Butterbumps is awesome. Anyway. I'm probably not going to try and sing because I think Butterbumps is kind of screaming more than singing here. And I've
No, no,
listened
no.
to
I
the
think you should sing. You do a really good
I've
job.
listened to the acoustic version of Bear the Maiden Fair only like once or twice. So I don't know if I even know the melody really.
I
Anyway,
think you can do it.
I don't know how I'm going to do something I don't even know. But anyway,
There you go.
we'll see. We'll see when we get there.
Yeah. Go with your gut. I
I
trust you.
hope. I hope. Hello, Mother
Hey, Mother
Ryan.
Lunar.
I hope for a
Libby,
pleasant
Chris.
surprise, Lady Thistle. The invitation seemed innocent enough, but every time. Oh, Charles is here. Good, because we're gonna. Charles is here. This perfect chapter for him to be here.
If I guarantee you that he could miss every chapter up till now, he would not miss this one.
This is his chapter, right?
Yeah,
This is where we learn who he is.
there you go.
The heir of House Tyrell is in the chat. Anyway, excited. The invitation seemed innocent enough, but every time Sansa read it, her tummy tightened into a knot. She used to be queen now. She's beautiful and rich, and everyone loves her. Why would she want to sup with a traitor's daughter? It could be curiosity, she supposed. Perhaps Marjorie Tyrell wanted to get the measure of the rival she'd displaced. Does she resent me, I wonder? Does she think I bear her ill will? Sansa had watched from the castle walls as Marjorie Tyrell and her escort made their way up Aegon's high hill. Joffrey had met his new bride-to-be at the King's Gate to welcome her to the city, and they rode side by side through cheering crowds, Joff glittering in gilded armor, and the Tyrell girl splendid in green with a cloak of autumn flowers blowing from her shoulders. She was 16, brown-haired and brown-eyed, slender and beautiful. The people called out her name as she passed, held up their children for her blessing, and scattered flowers under the hooves of her horse. Her mother and grandmother followed close behind, riding in a tall wheelhouse whose sides were carved into the shape of 100 twining roses, everyone gilded and shiny. The small folk cheered them as well.
There's a big difference from when they sent Marcelo away.
Yeah, and it's somewhat misplaced in that the people who caused the food shortage are the ones they're cheering here.
Yeah.
The same small folk who pulled me from my horse and would have killed me if not for the hound. Sansa had done nothing to make the commons hate her, no more than Marjorie Tyrell had done to win their love. Well, that's debatable.
Yeah.
Um, does she want me to love her too? She studied the invitation, which looked to be written in Marjorie's own hand. Does she want my blessing? Sansa wondered if Joffrey knew of this supper. For all she knew, it might be his doing. That thought made her fearful. If Joff was behind the invitation, he would have some cruel jape plan to shame her in the older girl's eyes. Would he command his Kingsguard to strip her naked once again? The last time he had done that, his uncle Tyrion had stopped him, but the imp could not save her now. No one can save me but my Florian. Sir Dantos had promised he would help her. PR, darling. Yes, exactly. No one can save me but my Florian. Sir Dantos had promised he would help her escape, but not until the night of Joffrey's wedding. The plans had been well laid, her dear devoted knight turned fool assured her. There was nothing to do until then but endure and count the days, and sup with my replacement. Perhaps she was doing Marjorie Tyrell an injustice. Perhaps the invitation was no more than a simple kindness, an act of courtesy. It might be just a supper. But this was the Red Keep. This was King's Landing. This was the court of King Joffrey Baratheon, the first of his name. And if there was one thing that Sansa Stark had learned here, it was mistrust. She has learned, and the Tyrells are playing the game. Even so, she must accept. She was nothing now, the discarded daughter of a traitor and disgraced sister of a rebel lord. She could scarcely refuse Joffrey's queen-to-be. I wish the hound were here. The night of the battle, Sandor Clegane had come to her chambers to take her from the city, but Sansa had refused. Sometimes she lay awake at night, wondering if she'd been wise. She had his stained white cloak hidden in a cedar chest beneath her summer silks. She could not say why she'd kept it. The hound had turned craven, she heard it said, at the height of the battle. He got so drunk the imp had to take his men. But Sansa understood. She knew the secret of his burned face. It was only the fire he feared. That night the wildfire had set the river itself ablaze and filled the very air with green flame. Even in the castle, Sansa had been afraid. Outside, she could scarcely imagine it.
She
On this,
is already making the hound's excuses, thinking about how the hound felt. I know
well, and
Sansan is a big deal, and it's kind of sick because of how young Sansa is. But the the seeds for Sansan were planted when there was a 5-year gap originally planned, and now that there's not, the seeds are still there. And I feel like George is going to take that seed all the way to its end somehow, uh, with the Hound and with Sansa.
yeah, we're definitely in agreement on this, right? Sansa's probably officially going to be married, but her children might look a bit houndish in the long run. It might be a while before she has children,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But my best guess at that is that she stays with Tyrion, given all his echoes of Ned and the bigamy and so forth. But um, I guess I could see Sweet Robin echoing Tommen. Their relationship reminds me of Marjorie and Tommen, so maybe that could be the official, which would make her potentially conceiving kind of funny if he's still pretty young when she does.
yeah.
Um, or maybe she could follow her original plan from this chapter and marry the heir to Highgarden, Charles. Oops, I mean Willis.
Well, I mean, we're told here, and after the rereads and watching other people's videos, and who's the suspected victim that was supposed to happen at the Purple Wedding, being Tyrion. Um, her saying that Dantos has said we can't leave until the king's wedding. The plans that the Tyrells and Littlefinger have made have already been made. It's already been set in motion for Dantos to say it's going to be that wedding night or wedding day.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would dispute
Yeah,
that they're already planning on the. Um, there's definitely going to be a poisoning. Now, I actually do think that it's straightforward. I think it's Marjorie poisoning Joffrey. I think that's less
boo,
risky.
boo.
I think that's less risky than Garland or Elena actually doing the deed and then somehow having to communicate when that takes place so that she can stop drinking from the wine. It's
Yeah.
much. That's too much risk. Too much risk to poison the wine that she's drinking and then have to communicate to her when it gets poisoned. She's the one with the easy access, right? And how hard would it be for Elena to get to Marjorie without people noticing? And I mean that's trivial.
Okay. This popped in my head. I don't know if somebody else has said it. If they have, please let me know in the comments. What if the Tyrells and Littlefinger makes the Tyrells want to plan Joffrey's murder, but in accommodating that, Littlefinger has flipped the script. All the players are correct. It's just the person he wanted poisoned is the one that gets poisoned. Then both people are actually planning what we think they're planning. The Tyrells and wanting Joffrey dead so she can marry Tommen and all that. But Littlefinger using the Tyrells the way that he plays the game and actually gets what he wants. He gets Tyrion dead. The Tyrells have had some part in it, even though they didn't get the outcome that they wanted. And he gets Sansa out of the city, and now she is unwed.
Well, I mean that part's definitely the plan. We know that much, right?
Right. I'm
So
saying
I
that,
I mean, let's be clear. I absolutely understand why I've watched Preston's video. I absolutely understand where you're at. I mean, clearly, Littlefinger's already tried to get to pin things on Tyrion and have them kill Tyrion before. He's going to be more motivated once he's wed to Sansa, right? So, I mean, he clearly wants Tyrion dead. Don't get me wrong,
Right.
and I get that, and honestly, what I believe is that George deliberately creates ambiguity with multiple correct interpretations, and so I certainly don't disagree. Let's go ahead and cover these comments here. An
Okay.
abused young female longs for protection more than anything, says Mother Royan. And Pod says it's not in the wine, which of course, like I said, I get it. Like especially considering, like exactly if it is in the wine, it has to be poisoned basically immediately before he takes his last few drinks there, his last drink before he starts to have problems anyway, right? So, which is all the more reason why it would have to be Marjorie, in my opinion, if it is the wine. But, right, because it's not. People act like this is something that at some point Elena dropped in when nobody was looking, and I'm just like, no, this was if it's the wine, it's immediately before because we know a drop will like instantly strangle you, right? We've seen it with Crescent, and Melisandre leaves him just like a few drops, and he drinks that. It's like instantly he's taken out, right?
Right.
And that's part of the point of Preston. He's like he bites the pie, and then he immediately
Then
has
he starts
his
choking.
problems, right?
Yeah.
And so so I certainly get that.
Okay.
Team Joffrey accidentally killed himself while trying to take revenge on Tyrion. Yeah, I've heard that theory that actually it was Cersei or something. Have you ever heard that?
Well, yeah, I heard it was Cersei and
She
it
immediately
backfired on
thinks it's
her.
poison. She
It
immediately thinks
backfired
it's
on her.
poison, as if she knew there was going to be poisoning.
Right, right, right. And that's the reason she blames Tyrion because he was the one that she was supposed to have killed.
Right,
And
right.
I mean, what if it's everybody there that's playing the game expected somebody to die?
Well,
Uh,
and of course,
uh,
Lady Thistle is specifically saying it's Joffrey. It's not even Cersei; it's Joffrey. Although I kind of like the Cersei one because, or
yeah.
them
Well, I
in
mean,
cahoots together.
I had not heard the Joffrey one, and I actually love that. That again, a player takes himself out just by being stupid. And what's it say?
That was as far as I know my personal theory. Can't wait to make a video on it any day.
Yeah, I
Or
mean
you can cover
that
it in
would
your new
fit.
podcast.
Yeah, I like like Joffrey trying it and killing himself
Killing
by
himself
accident.
by
Yeah,
accident.
which just shows how stupid Joffrey is. I mean, I kind of like that. Okay, what's this one say?
I have to give to Richard. There's a big possibility that Marjorie could be involved in the murder. We don't have an insight to their plan or on how the Charmels work. Thank you, Charles. I mean, I like that version of that interpretation of this ambiguous poisoning. How did that go? The wine, the pie, and the lemon cream are all poisoned. Wait, are you starting a podcast? Yeah, she's starting a podcast. Aren't you Lady Thistle? I thought that's what I heard.
I don't
I
know
think
when
there's
though.
actually a Blue Sky. Isn't there actually a Blue Sky account that is Lady Thistle's podcast? Or am I thinking of somebody else?
I know I saw the she showed the banner, the emblem
Yeah, I thought
of
it was Charles
the
and Lady
glass
Thistle that
cattle.
were starting a podcast.
What is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Charles says yeah. Yeah, see, I
Okay.
got it right. All right.
Okay.
Sorry, let's go ahead and continue. It's actually a pretty long chapter. So despite being in chapter one, it's one of the few long chapter ones here. Signed, she got out quill and ink and wrote Marjorie Tyrell a gracious note of acceptance. When the appointed night arrived, another of the Kingsguard came for her. A man as different from Sandor Clegane as a flower from a dog. The thought and I am definitely starting a podcast any day now. All right. That's what I thought. I look forward to it.
So do I.
She got out quill and ink and wrote Marjorie Taylor a gracious note of acceptance. When the appointed night arrived, I already said that. Another of the Kingsguard came for her. A man as different from Sandor Clegane as a flower from a dog. The sight of Dolores Tyrell standing on her threshold made Sansa's heart beat a little faster. This was the first time she'd been so close to him since he had returned to King's Landing, leading the vanguard of his father's host. For a moment, she did not know what to say. Sir Loras, she finally managed. You You look so lovely. He gave her a puzzled smile. My lady is too kind, and beautiful besides. My sister awaits you eagerly. I've so looked forward to our supper, as has Marjorie, and my lady grandmother as well. He took her arm and led her towards the steps. Your grandmother? Sansa was finding it hard to walk and talk and think all at the same time with Sir Loras touching her arm. She could feel the warmth of his hand through the silk. Yeah, pubescent crushes are overwhelming. We've all been there.
Yeah.
I suggest Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Central. uh, Lady Elena, she is to sup with you as well. Oh, said Sansa. I'm talking to him. He's touching me. He's holding my arm and touching me. The Queen of Thorns, she's called. Isn't that right? It is, Sir Loras laughed. He has the warmest laugh, she thought as he went on. You'd best not use that name in her presence, though, or you're like to get pricked. Sansa reddened.
She keeps using warm. This is the second time that warm has been mentioned with Sir Loras, so I don't know if that has some future fire symbolism going on, or the burning from the oil. It just struck me
Interesting. Interesting. Given the Kingsguard are usually kind of the others, so it's kind of opposite symbolism. That's interesting.
Right. I mean, she's talking about how beautiful this man is, and if he is burned by the oil that we've been told,
okay,
then he's going to be
maybe he is associated with fire. Yeah, I like that.
Well, yeah. Well, she just compared him to the Hound,
and he's becoming the Hound with his scar potentially. Oh yeah. And it's going to be more. He's going to be more disabused as we see the pattern with Jaime and Brienne. He's going to become more cynical and yeah. All right, I'll buy that.
Okay.
You still don't tell a knight lovely. LOL, says Charles. Sansa reddened. Any fool would have realized that no woman would be happy about being called the Queen of Thorns. Maybe I truly am as stupid as Cersei Lannister says. Desperately, she tried to think of something clever and charming to say to him, but her wits had deserted her. She almost told him how beautiful he was until she remembered that she'd already done that. He was beautiful, though. He seemed taller than he'd been when she'd first met him, but still so lithe and graceful, and Sansa had never seen another boy with such wonderful eyes. He's no boy, though. He's a man grown, a knight of the Kingsguard. She thought he looked even finer in white than in the greens and golds of House Tyrell. The only spot of color on him now was the brooch that clasped his cloak, the rose of Highgarden wrought in soft yellow gold, nestled in a bed of delicate green jade leaves. Sir Balin Swan held the door of Marjorie's for them to pass. He was all in white as well, though he did not wear it half so well as Sir Loras. Beyond the spiked moat, 24 men were taking their practice with sword and shield. With the castle so crowded, the outer ward had been given over to guests to raise their tents and pavilions, leaving only the smaller inner yards for training. One of the Redwine twins was being driven backward by Sir Talent, with the eyes on his shield. Chunky Sir Kenos of Case, who chuffed and puffed every time he raised his longsword, seemed to be holding his own against Osney Kettleblack, but Osney's brother Sir Osfrid was savagely punishing the frog-faced Squire Morris Slint. Blunted swords or no, Slint would have a rich crop of bruises by the morrow. It made Sansa wince just to watch. They've scarcely finished burying the dead from the last battle, and already they are practicing for the next one. On the edge of the yard, a lone knight with a pair of golden roses on his shield was holding off 3 foes. Even as they watched, he caught one of them alongside the head, knocking him senseless. Is that your brother? Sansa asked. It is, my lady, said Sir Loras. Garland often trains against 3 men or even 4. In battle, it is seldom 1 against 1, he says, so he likes to be prepared. He must be very brave. He is a great knight, Sir Loras replied. A better sword than me, in truth, though I'm the better lance. So we mentioned this last time, but Jon is like Garland, the sword to Robb's Loras, the lance. I remember, since I would argue that House Dane is more about the sword, and that Rhaegar is more about the lance. That would be my take, but anyway. I remember, said Sansa. You ride wonderfully, sir. My lady is gracious to say so. When has she seen me ride? Honestly, Loras shouldn't need memory to figure this out. He knows she came here with Ned when he was named Hand, and he now knows she saw him joust. That the Hand's tourney pretty much has to be the answer. So she shouldn't feel bad about him not remembering this. He should feel bad about him not remembering this.
Well, not to get Charles pissed off at me, maybe Sir Loras is not as intelligent as we might think, or he's just preoccupied.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot has happened to him since then, right? So
Yeah.
he's this was not something that was nearly as much imprinting on him as it was on Sansa, obviously. So
Yeah.
uh, at the hands tourney, don't you remember? You rode a white courser, and your armor was 100 different kinds of flowers. You gave me a rose, a red rose. You threw white roses to the other girls that day. It made her flush to speak of it. You said no victory was half as beautiful as me. Sir Loris gave her a modest smile. I spoke only a simple truth that any man with eyes could see. He doesn't remember, Sansa realized, startled. He's only being kind to me. He doesn't remember me or the rose or any of it. She'd been so certain that it meant something, that it meant everything. A red rose, not a white. It was after you unhorsed Sir Robar Royce, she said desperately. He took his hand from her arm. I slew Robar at Storm's End, my lady. It was not a boast. He sounded sad. So Tyrion complained that he had stopped at 3, which matches with Jamie killing 3, including Jory. See, Triplet Figures, episode 6. Him and another of King Renly's Rainbow Guard as well. Yes, Sansa had heard the woman talking of it round the well, but for a moment she'd forgotten. I swear to God, GRM is making fun of us there.
I think he's always making fun of us, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it could be. Um, Sansa had heard the woman talking of it around the well, but for a moment she'd forgotten. That was when Lord Renly was killed, wasn't it? How terrible for your poor sister. For Marjorie? His voice was tight. To be sure. She was at Bitterbridge, though. She did not see. Even so, when she heard, Dolores brushed the hilt of his sword lightly with his hand. Its grip was white leather, its pommel a rose and alabaster. Renly is dead, Robar as well. What use to speak of them? The sharpness in his tone took her aback. My lord, I did not mean to give offense, sir. Nor could you, Lady Sansa, Dolores replied, but all the warmth had gone from his voice. Nor did he take her arm again. They ascended the Serpentine. It's hard. This is hard for Loras, right? I mean, he's always had to hide his love. It took 20 minutes to get to 2. Anyway, they ascended the Serpentine steps in a deepening silence.
Also, we're talking about the Kingsguard being the others.
Mm-hmm.
All the warmth had left him.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Oh, why did I have to mention Sir Robar? Sansa thought. I've ruined everything. He's angry with me now. She tried to think of something she might say to make amends, but all the words that came to her were lame and weak. Be quiet, or you will only make it worse, she told herself. Lord Mace Tyrell and his entourage had been housed behind the royal sept in the long slate-roofed keep that had been called the Maiden Vault since King Baelor the Blessed had confined his sisters therein, so the sight of them might not tempt him into carnal thoughts. Outside its tall carved doors stood 2 guards with gilded half-helms and green cloaks edged in gold satin, the golden rows of Highgarden sewn on their breasts. Both were 7-footers, wide of shoulder and narrow of waist, magnificently muscled. When Sansa got close enough to see their faces, she could not tell one from the other. They had the same strong jaws, the same deep blue eyes, the same thick red mustaches. Who are they? She asked Sir Loras, her discomfort forgotten for a moment. My grandmother's. So I do wonder if they have some House Strong blood or perhaps Duncan blood, which might be the same thing.
Yeah,
I guess
the
Crowfoot's
red
daughter says the same
mustaches
thing.
kind of throw me off a little bit, though.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you got what is it? Hodor is what, brown hair. Brienne is yellow hair. Dunk.
I thought about saying something about it, Lizzie. Oh, you guys didn't lock your siblings away to control your lust. How do you celebrate Thanksgiving? Or how do you celebrate Thanksgiving? Oh yeah, left and right sploosh.
But yeah, I
Anyway,
mean, well, Dunk is what, brown hair.
right.
So
That it is something that kind of throws you off, and how strong, as far as we know, is blonde, with
yeah,
Lusamore the Lusty being blonde. Um, so I guess Crowfoot's daughter has the Disputed Land would be the YouTube channel. Who would possibly call themselves one thing and have a YouTube channel with another name, like me? Anyway,
yeah. Could their names
anyway,
be a hint on from where they're from? Because the name sounds familiar.
Eric and Ark, yeah. I mean that those are the famous twin, aren't they? Aren't they named the famous twin
Guard.
Kingsguards from the dance? Are
I
they?
can't
Or
remember.
it's something similar to that if it's not that. Anyway,
Yeah.
my grandmother's personal guard, he told her. Their mother named them Eric and Arik, but grandmother can't tell them apart, so she calls them left and right. Left and right opened the doors, and Marjorie Tyrell herself emerged and swept down the short flight of steps to greet them. Lizzie says yes.
Thank you, Liz.
Lady Sansa, she called. I'm so pleased you came. Be welcome. Sansa, no, well, and maybe that is kind of a tie towards how strong as far as I don't know. Anyway, because we talked about the Kettle Blacks and how they might actually be a tie to House Went and therefore House Strong, and so I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
Left and right opened the doors. Marjorie Taylor emerged and swept down a short flight of steps to greet them. I said that, I think. Lady Sansa, she called. I'm so pleased you came. Be welcome. Sansa knelt at the feet of her future queen. You do me great honor, your grace. Won't you call me Marjorie? Please rise. Loras, help the Lady Sansa to her feet. Might I call you Sansa? If it please you. So Loras helped her up. Marjorie dismissed him with a sisterly kiss and took Sansa by the hand. Come, my grandmother awaits, and she is not the most patient of ladies. A fire was crackling in the hearth, and sweet-smelling rushes had been scattered on the floor. Around the long trestle table, a dozen women were seated. Sansa recognized only Lord Tyrell's tall, dignified wife, Lady Ilari, whose long silvery braid was bound with jeweled rings. Marjorie performed the other introductions. There were 3 Tyrell cousins, Megha and Alla and Eleanor, all close to Sansa's age. Buxom Lady Jonna was Lord Tyrell's sister and wed to one of the Green Apple Fostaways. Dainty, bright-eyed Lady Leonette was a Fostaway as well, and wed to Sir Garland. Septa Nesterica had a homely, pox-scarred face, but seemed jolly. Pale, elegant Lady Graceford was with child, and Lady Bulwer was a child, no more than 8. And Mary was what she was called boisterous, plump Meredith Crane, but most definitely not Lady Merryweather, a sultry, black-eyed, Moorish beauty. So obviously Lady Merryweather is a huge character, and the main reason we think Dorcas is Varys. But I'm also interested in Eleanor, since she seems to be named after the real world of Shara Dane, Eleanor Talbot. See Triplet Targaryens, episode 1. Last of all, Marjorie brought her before the wizened, white-haired doll of a woman at the head of the table. I'm honored to present my grandmother, the Lady Elena, widow to the late Luther Tyrell, Lord of Highgarden, whose memory is a comfort to us all. A.K.A. Maggie the Frog. I don't remember what we said that would be A.K.A. Maggie the Frog.
The L.
Is that? Oh, Meredith. Is that Meredith Crane? Anyway. Last of all, Marjorie brought her for the wise and wait. We've said that already. I'm honored to present my grandmother. The Lady Elena, widow to the late Luther Tyrell, Lord of Highgarden, whose memory is a comfort to us all. The old woman smelled of rosewater. Why, she's just the littlest bit of a thing. There was nothing the least bit thorny about her. Kiss me, child, Lady Elena said, tugging at Sansa's wrist with a soft, spotted hand. It is so kind of you to sup with me and my foolish flock of hens. Dutifully, Sansa.
With her being so small, could she possibly be any relation to the Ghost of Highheart?
Interesting, or the Children of the Forest, or the Crannogmen or something. Yeah, interesting. I don't know.
Is that who, Charles? Is that who you're talking about as Maggie the Frog, or are you mentioning somebody else?
Yeah, tell us who Maggie the Frog is,
please.
I mean, I know who Maggie the Frog is. Tell us which character you're saying is also known as Maggie the Frog here.
It would have to be Maggie, right? Or Mary?
That's what I was wondering. Dutifully, Sansa kissed the old woman on the cheek. It is kind of you to have me, my lady. I knew your grandfather, Lord Rickard, though not well. He died before I was born. I'm aware of that, child. It's said that your Tolly grandfather is dying too, Lord Hoster. Surely they told you. An old man, though not so old as me. Still, night falls for all of us in the end. Too soon for some. You would know that more than most, poor child. You've had your share of grief, I know. We're sorry for your losses. Sansa glanced at Marjorie. I was saddened when I heard of Lord Renly's death, your grace. He was very gallant. You're kind to say so, answered Marjorie. Her grandmother snorted. Gallant, yes, and charming, and very clean. He knew how to dress, and he knew how to smile, and he knew how to bathe, and somehow he got the notion that this made him fit to be king. The Baratheons have always had some queer notions, to be sure. It comes from their Targaryen blood, I should think. She sniffed. They tried to marry me to a Targaryen once, but I soon put an end to that. Renly was brave and gentle, grandmother, said Marjorie. Father liked him as well, and so did Loras. Loris is young, Lady Elena said crisply, and very good at knocking men off horses with a stick. That does not make him wise. As to your father, would that I'd been born a peasant woman with a big wooden spoon. I might have been able to beat some sense into his fat head. Mother, Lady O'Leary scolded. Taina Merryweather is Maggie the Frog. Ah, the truth must be accepted, whispering. Look with your eyes. Ah, interesting.
Nice.
Interesting. Ah, I may have to look into that.
I'm definitely going to keep that in the back of my head every time we meet her on the page then.
Lady Thistle's theory that Taina Merryweather is Maggie the Frog, says Charles. I will not be silenced. All right, I'm interested. Anyway.
Definitely.
Hush, Alary. Don't take that tone with me. And don't call me mother. If I'd given birth to you, I'm sure I'd remember. I'm only to blame for your husband, the Lord Oaf of Highgarden. Grandmother, Marjorie said, mind your words, or what will Sansa think of us? She might think we have some wits about us. One of us, at any rate. The old woman turned back to Sansa. It's treason, I warn them. Robert has 2 sons, and Renly has an older brother. How can he possibly have any claim to that ugly iron chair? Tut tut, says my son. Don't you want your sweetling to be queen? You Starks were kings once, the Arryns and the Lannisters as well, even the Baratheons through the female line, but the Tyrells were no more than stewards until Aegon the Dragon came along and cooked the rightful king of the Reach on the field of fire. If truth be told, even our claim to Highgarden is a bit dodgy, just as those dreadful Florents are always whining. What does it matter, you ask? And of course it doesn't, except to oafs like my son. The thought that one day he might see his grandson with his arse on the Iron Throne makes Mace puff up like, now what do you call it? Marjorie, you're clever. Be a dear and tell your poor old half-daft grandmother the name of that queer fish from the Summer Isles that puffs up to 10 times its own size when you poke it. They call them puff fish, grandmother. Of course they do. Summer Islanders have no imagination. My son ought to take the puff fish for a sigil, if truth be told. He could put a crown on it, the way the Baratheons do their stag. Mayhaps that would make him happy. We should have stayed well out of all this bloody foolishness, if you ask me. But once the cow's been milked, there's no squirting the cream back up her udder. After Lord Pufffish put that crown on Renly's head, we were into the pudding up to our knees. So here we are to see things through. And what do you say to that, Sansa? Sansa's mouth opened and closed. Dreadful Florence. She felt very like a Pufffish herself. The Tyrells can trace their descent back to Garth Greenhand was the best she could manage at short notice. And I do think that's not bad for, short notice, as she said.
Yeah,
so she's pretty good at this stuff.
Everything that the Queen of Thorns just threw at her, I mean, I imagine having to even come up with that was very difficult.
Pod has a theory that the Maggie the Frog is the Knight of the Laughing Tree. Okay.
Is Pod messing with us?
Maybe. And technically, the Baratheons didn't actually put the crown on their stag. The kings that wore the stag before did. Okay. Queen of Thorns snorted. So can the Florents, the Rowans, the Oakharts, and half the other noble houses of the South. Garth liked to plant his seed in fertile ground, they say. I shouldn't wonder that more than his hands were green. Sansa, Lady O'Leary broke in. You must be very hungry. Shall we have a bite of boar together and some lemon cakes? Lemon cakes are my favorite, Sansa admitted. So we've been told, declared Lord Elena, who obviously had no intention of being hushed. I'm messing with Lady Thistle. Pod's jealous because he only sells shitty dollar store probably tinfoil. All right. So we've been told, declared Lady Elena, who obviously had no intention of being hushed. That Varys creature seemed to think we should be grateful for the information. I've never been quite sure what the point of a eunuch is, if truth be told. It seems to me there are only men with the useful bits cut off. Larry, will you have them bring the food, or do you mean to starve me to death? Here, Sansa, sit here next to me. I'm much less boring than these others. I hope that you're fond of fools. These others is interesting anyway. But anyway,
yeah.
Sansa smoothed down her skirts and sat. I think, fools, my lady? You mean the sort in motley? Feathers, in this case. What did you imagine I was speaking of? My son? Or these lovely ladies? No, don't blush. With your hair, it makes you look like a pomegranate. All men are fools, if truth be told, but the ones in motley are more amusing than ones with crowns. Marjorie, child, summon Butterbumps. Let us see if we can't make Lady Sansa smile. The rest of you be seated. Do I have to tell you everything? Sansa must think that my granddaughter is attended by a flock of sheep. Yeah, dollar store tinfoil holds water about as well as my strainer.
Okay. Just on the tinfoil alone,
Yeah, we're gonna
I
do
watched.
some tinfoil right here, but go on.
Yeah, I watched the Wi-Files because I think it's hilarious. And today, or I was listening to one, they were talking about the trumpet sound in the sky that's all over the world and rumbling and all this kind of stuff. And there was this humming at one city that was driving people crazy, and the vibrations from it would rattle their teeth. And the thing that would stop the humming and the rattling of their teeth was a tinfoil hat.
Huh. Interesting.
All right, sorry.
All right. So we're never actually told that Bowen Marsh, the old pomegranate, has red hair, or that Howland and Jojen Reed have red hair. But right here is a significant clue, right? That your hair is what makes you look like a pomegranate.
Yeah.
George only actually hints at Krunigman having red hair and has Bran as a redhead note Mira's brown hair and leave off. Mention that he thinks that Howland looks like Jojen and that and never tell us what color hair Jojen has, right? And so he's been a little bit cagey. And as Toodles would say, I mean, this is all from Toodles. That's the first I heard all these things.
Right.
But Toodles would say that the Cranigs in our world are the place with the highest percentage of redheads in our world. They call Bowen that because, well, this is implying there's a combination of hair and of the hair and the blushing that causes. So yes, it would be a combination. The implication is that it's the same combination for Bowen, that he's a redhead with red skin, just as Sansa winds up looking like a
Blushing with the
pomegranate
red.
when she's a redhead with red skin, and it's the combination of the two that makes her look like a pomegranate. So that's what they're saying here, right?
Yeah, well, I agree that Bran mentioning Mira's hair and then not mentioning somebody that had similar hair to him makes sense.
Right, and then that's what leads me to believe that Dany with Ashara Dane's eyes, telling us that Quaif's eyes are wet and shiny, which to me is synonymous with laughing, and not telling us the color would therefore be Ashara Dane's colored eyes. And of course, George refers to Ashara as the shadow in the first book and as the shadowy secret in the second book, which ties to the Quaif of the shadow. Right. Anyway, I always like to mention that whenever any of these clues come up that kind of imply that that's what George is doing with leaving off details. Now,
I'm
that does not
surprised there
mean
wasn't a
that does
triple
not mean
Targaryen reference in there.
I probably do mention that in one of them. Off the top of my
You
head,
do?
that's probably Danny's. Yeah, episode 4. Okay, Teach Us Figures episode 4. Fair enough. But well, and actually, I suppose I'm talking about Toodles and his theories, and specifically Howland Reed, and that's actually Teach Us Figures episode 6. So we can get two of them in there. All right.
And they weren't even in the script.
And then right away to 4, Lizzie. Anyway. Yep. Butterbumps arrived before the food, dressed in a jester suit of green and yellow feathers with a floppy coxcomb. An immense round fat man as big as 3 moon boys, he came cartwheeling into the hall, vaulted onto the table, and laid a gigantic egg right in front of Sansa. "Break it, my lady," he commanded. When she did, a dozen yellow chicks escaped and began running in all directions. "Catch them!" Butterbumps exclaimed. Little Lady Bulwer snagged one and handed it to him, whereby he tilted back his head, puffed it into his huge rubbery mouth, and seemed to swallow it whole. When he belched, tiny yellow feathers flew out his nose. Lady Bulwer began to wail in distress, but her tears turned into a sudden squeal of delight when the chick came squirming out of the sleeve of her gown and ran down her arm.
Hey, the rubbery skin.
Yeah.
Isn't one of Jaqen cellmates or whatever? Doesn't he have like a rubbery skin type thing going on?
Yeah, I think it's Biter, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I think David Lightbringer has theorized that maybe Biter is actually a squisher.
Okay.
As the servants brought out a broth of leeks and mushrooms, Butterbumps began to juggle, and Lady Elena pushed herself forward to rest her elbows on the table. "Do you know my son, Sansa, Lord Pufffish of Highgarden?" "A great lord," Sansa answered politely. "A great oaf," said the Queen of Thorns. "His father was an oaf as well. My husband, the late Lord Luther. Oh, I loved him well enough, don't mistake me. A kind man and not unskilled in the bedchamber, but an appalling oaf all the same. He managed to ride off a cliff whilst hawking. They say he was looking up at the sky and paying no mind to where his horse was taking him."
Okay,
Actually,
stop right there.
Yeah.
All right, this is Charles, and I agree with him 100%.
Hmm.
When he rode off the cliff looking at the sky, he was skin changed into the hawk.
Okay.
There's skin changing blood in House Tyrell. And
But
when
there
Charles
almost
told me, go ahead.
another option there would be somebody can change the horse,
Well, I
right? Because
mean, this is true, but
how is a horse going to just walk off a cliff? Like, I don't I don't think a horse would do that.
yeah, but what's the benefit of just killing him, though?
Maybe it's
Right.
Mace.
Yeah, but I mean,
Maybe Mace murdered his father. I don't know.
well, I don't know.
He's the one that
Mace
benefits.
Tyrell is an idiot, but I mean that might
Yeah.
be just a
Well,
ruse.
he's the one that benefits though.
This is true. But when Charles told me that, it was another mic drop that Lady Thistle
No, I
has all
like
the
it.
time.
I like it.
Because
Well, and it could have it could be that he actually killed himself through skin since I mean Varamir Sixskins is specifically able to control multiple animals at once, and so he may have accidentally controlled the horse while trying to control the hawk or something, and kill himself with
and
skin
actually
changing.
have two. Yeah, actually. Hey, Charles, have you thought about that? That the Lord
Yeah,
Tyrell was
Lizzie's
actually skin changing both the horse and the hawk?
accidentally perhaps. Yeah,
Yeah.
Lizzie says she always did wonder. Yeah, so she's making the same comment I make, and it's like it sure feels like there has to be some skin changing involved with the horse for that to happen. Yeah, I could see that being an accident where he
Yeah.
he accidentally skin changed the horse as well. Anyway.
Yeah. I like that. I love Charles's theory. I agree with it. And then
Oh, and the horse was actually trying to fly because it was mind melded with him and the bird potentially.
yeah, well, we're told the dangers of skin changing birds because when you're not in the bird, you're
You're always
staring
looking at,
at the
yeah.
sky
You're right. That fits.
longingly.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep. That certainly
yeah,
fits. And
yeah,
and you could see if it somehow overflowed into the horse that the horse might think it was flying. And
yeah.
it kind of all makes sense. Anyway, I like it.
But if he's skin changing too, that tells me that they may be really strong skin changers.
Right.
Sir Loris, being the better lance, would indicate that he could possibly
He
be
would be the one with more
skin
skin changing.
changing the horse. And let me go out here a little bit with the potential of Sir Loris being gay. Um, that might be the reason why he chooses female horses versus the steroid induced testosterone filled stallions or whatever the war horses like Sir Gregor um, chooses.
Okay.
But okay.
And now my oaf son is doing the same, only he's riding a lion instead of a palfrey. It's easy to mount a lion and not so easy to get off, I warned him, but he only chuckles. Should you ever have a son, Sansa, beat him frequently so he learns to mind you. I only had the one boy, and I hardly beat him at all, so now he pays more heed to Butterbumps than he does to me. A lion is not a lap cat, I told him. He gives me a tut-tut, mother. There's entirely too much tut-tutting in this realm, if you ask me. All these kings would do a deal better if they would put down their swords and listen to their mothers. That's certainly true for Robb. I'm
Yeah.
not sure that Joffrey's problem is that he doesn't listen to Cersei enough, but well, in some cases it is, but anyway.
Joffrey's problem is who he's actually listening to.
Yeah, he
Or
needs to listen to somebody. He
yeah,
definitely needs to listen to somebody better than he is. Sansa realized that her mouth was open again. She filled it with a spoon of broth, while Lady Illyria and the other women were giggling at the spectacle of Butterbumps bouncing oranges off his head, his elbows, and his ample rump. I want you to tell me the truth about this royal boy, said Lady Elena abruptly. This Joffrey. Sansa's fingers tightened around her spoon. The truth? I can't. Don't ask it, please. I can't. I, 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 you, yes. You would, who would know better? The lad seems kingly enough, I'll grant you. A bit full of himself, but that would be his Lannister blood. We have heard some troubling tales, however. Is there any truth to them? Has this boy mistreated you? Is that his Lannister blood or his Targaryen blood? See Triplet Targaryens, episode 5.
and of course we
Sensible.
know where they've heard these tales from. That would be Littlefinger's
Yep.
minions, not
Spreading the tale.
Littlefinger himself. Yeah.
Yep. Sansa glanced about nervously. Butterbus popped a whole orange into his mouth, chewed and swallowed, slapped his cheek, and blew seeds out of his nose. The woman giggled and laughed. Servants were coming and going, and the maiden vault echoed to the clatter of spoons and plates. One of the chicks hopped back onto the table and ran through Lady Graceford's broth. No one seemed to be paying them any minds, but even so, she was frightened. Lady Helena was growing impatient. Why are you gaping at Butterbumps? I asked you a question. I expect an answer. Have the Lannisters stolen your tongue, child? Sir Dantos had warned her to speak freely only in the godswood. King Joffrey, his grace is very fair and handsome and as brave as a lion. Yes, all the Lannisters are lions, and when a Tyrell breaks wind, it smells just like a rose, the old woman snapped. But how kind is he? How clever? Has he a good heart, a gentle hand? Is he chivalrous as befits a king? Will he cherish Marjorie and treat her tenderly, protect her honor as he would his own? 5, rhymes with 5. Root and stem, we are not a cult. He will, Sansa lied. He is very, very comely. You said that. You know, child, some say that you are as big a fool as Butterbumps here. I'm starting to believe them. Comely? I've taught my Marjorie what comely is worth, I hope. Somewhat less than a mummer's fart. Arian Brightfire was comely enough, but a monster all the same. The question is, what is Joffrey? She reached to snag a passing servant. I'm not fond of leeks. Take this broth away and bring me some cheese. The cheese will be served after the cakes, my lady. The cheese will be served when I want it served, and I want it served now. Middleman turned back to Sansa. Why are you frightened, child? No need for that. We're only women here. Tell me the truth. No harm will come to you. We're only women here is an interesting line, especially given her line about eunuchs. I'm not. I don't know. It's so nuanced. I don't even know how to discuss it. Let's just go on.
Okay.
My father always told the truth. Sansa spoke quietly, but even so, it was hard to get the words out. Lord Eddard, yes, he had that reputation, but they named him traitor and took his head off even so. The old woman's eyes bore into her, sharp and bright as the points of swords or thorns. Joffrey, Sansa said. Joffrey did that. He promised me he would be merciful and cut my father's head off. He said that was mercy, and he took me up on the walls and made me look at it, the head. He wanted me to weep, but she stopped abruptly and covered her mouth. I've said too much. Oh, gods be good, they'll know. They'll hear. Someone will tell on me. Go on. It was Marjorie who urged, Joffrey's own queen-to-be. Sansa did not know how much she had heard. I can't. What if she tells him? What if she tells? He'll kill me for certain then, or give me to Sir Ilyn. I never meant. My father was a traitor, my brother as well. I have the traitor's blood. Please don't make me say more. It gives me woman of ancient robe vibes. We're only women here, but actually we are the ones running the board. Okay. Yeah, I do think that's the implication, right? Is that she's simultaneously telling us that men are worthless, and then saying, "Oh, there's nothing to worry about. We're only women here." It's like, yeah. Calm yourself, child. The Queen of Thorns commanded. She's terrified, grandmother. Just look at her. The old woman called to Butterbumps. Fool, give us a song, a long one, I should think. The Bear and the Maiden Fair will do nicely. It will, the huge jester replied. It will do nicely indeed. Shall I sing it standing on my head, my lady? Will that make it sound better? No. Stand on your feet, then. We won't want your hat to fall off. As I recall, you never wash your hair. As my lady commands. Butterbumps bowed low, let loose of an enormous belch, then straightened, threw out his belly, and bellowed, A bear there was, a bear, all black and brown and covered with hair. Lady Olenna squirmed forward. Even when I was a girl younger than you, it was well known that in the Red Keep the very walls have ears. Well, they'll be the better for a song, and meanwhile we girls shall speak freely.
Hey,
But
quick
since
thing. He's got rubbery skin and he doesn't wash his hair.
Mhm.
There's something going on with this guy.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I don't know what, but there probably is.
Yeah, he's a merman.
Yeah, could be. But Sansa said, Varys, he knows he always. Sing louder, the Queen of Thorns shouted at Butterbumps. These old ears are almost deaf, you know. Are you whispering at me, you fat fool? I don't pay you for whispers. Sing! The bear, thundered Butterbumps, his great deep voice echoing off the rafters. Oh, come, they said. Oh, come to the fair. The fair, said he. But I'm a bear, all black and brown and covered with hair. The wrinkled old lady smiled. At Highgarden, we have many spiders amongst the flowers. So long as they keep to themselves, we let them spin their little webs. But if they get underfoot, we step on them. She patted Sansa on the back of the hand. Now, child, the truth. What sort of man is this Joffrey who calls himself Baratheon but looks so very Lannister? She already agreed that Lord Eddard spoke the truth, so we know what she's implying.
Yeah.
Butterbumps made dreads a trend in Westeros. He's a big deal. I believe that Olenna is extremely intelligent in this chapter. She shows up a little snippet of their dynamic as a family. They're organized and they're all in it. Yep, definitely.
Also, they have the ability to spot Varys's little birds. They know where they are. And
Yeah, that's the implication. They're aware that they're spying on them in Highgarden. That the spider has forces in Highgarden.
yeah,
She played her house down, made her son look weak, and made Sansa comfortable and somewhat important. Also, she made herself the voice of reason. Lady Olenna was able to manipulate the room. Yep.
yeah, this is true.
Manipulate the room or the conversation and her main goal, Sansa. Yep. And down the road from here to there, from here to there, 3 boys, a goat, and a dancing bear. Sansa felt as though her heart had lodged in her throat. The Queen of Thorns was so close she could smell the old woman's sour breath. Her gaunt, thin fingers were pinching her wrist. To her other side, Marjorie was listening as well. A shiver went through her. A monster, she whispered, so tremulous she could scarcely hear her own voice. Joffrey is a monster. He lied about the butcher's boy and made father kill my wolf. When I displease him, he has the Kingsguard beat me. He's evil and cruel, my lady. It's so. And the Queen as well. Lady Olenna Tyrell and her granddaughter exchanged a look. Ah, said the old woman. That's a pity. Oh, gods, thought Sansa, horrified. If Marjorie won't marry him, Joffrey will know that I'm to blame. Please, she blurted, don't stop the wedding. Have no fear. Lord Pufffish is determined that Marjorie shall be queen, and the word of a Tyrell is worth more than all the gold in Casterly Rock. At least it was in my day. Even so, we thank you for the truth, child. At least it was in my day implies it might no longer be so, as if she doesn't believe her son is honest. I love how they're like, oh, bummer, dudes. And of course, that could go to Charles's point that she's downplaying her son and his honor and honesty, and saying that she's constantly kind of dogging on him to lower Sansa's expectations from him.
Yeah.
Danced and spun all the way to the fair, the fair, the fair. Butterbumps hopped and roared and stomped his feet. Sansa, would you like to visit Highgarden? When Marjorie Tyrell smiled, she looked very like her brother Loras. All the autumn flowers are in bloom just now, and there are groves and fountains, shady courtyards, marble colonnades. My lord father always keeps singers at court, sweeter ones than butters here, and pipers and fiddlers and harpers as well. We have the best horses and pleasure boats to sail along the Mander. Do you hawk, Sansa? A little, she admitted. Oh, sweet she was, and pure and fair, the maid with honey in her hair. This song makes tracking down every honey hair reference considerably more difficult. See Triplet Targaryens episode 7. You will love Highgarden as I do. I know it. Marjorie brushed back a loose strand of Sansa's hair. Once you see it, you'll never want to leave, and perhaps you won't have to. Her hair, the maid with honey in her hair. Shush, child, the Queen of Thorns said sharply. Sansa hasn't even told us that she would like to come up for a visit. Oh, but I would, Sansa said. Highgarden sounded like the place she had always dreamed of, like the beautiful magical court she'd once hoped to find at King's Landing. Smelled the scent on the summer air, the bear, all black and brown and covered with hair. But the Queen, Sansa went on, she won't let me go. 6, now we're building momentum. She will. Without Highgarden, the Lancers have no hope of keeping Joffrey on his throne. If my son, the Lord Oath, asks, she'll have no choice but to grant his request. Will he? Asked Sansa. Will he ask? Lady Olenna frowned. I see no need to give him a choice. Of course, he has no hint of our true purpose. He smelled the scent on the summer air. Sansa wrinkled her brow. Our true purpose, my lady? He sniffed and roared and smelled it there. Honey on the summer air. To see you safely wed, child, the old woman said as Butterbump bellowed out the old song. To my grandson. Wed to Sir Loras. Oh. Sansa's breath caught in her throat. She remembered Sir Loras in his sparkling sapphire armor, tossing her a rose. Sir Loras in white silk, so pure, innocent, beautiful. The dimples at the corner of his mouth when he smiled, the sweetness of his laugh, the warmth of his hand. She could only imagine what it would be like to pull up his tunic and caress the smooth skin underneath, to stand on her toes and kiss him, to run her fingers through those thick brown curls and drown in his deep brown eyes. A flush
There's
crept
the
up her
warmth
neck.
of his hand again.
Yeah, and once again, hormones and pubescent crushes don't always jump to the most intelligent conclusions. So I know this is kind of a dumb move here on Sansa's part, but you can kind of understand why.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm a maid and I'm pure and fair. I'll never dance with a hairy bear. A bear. I'll never dance with a hairy bear. Would you like that, Sansa? Asked Marjorie. I've never had a sister, only brothers. Oh, please say yes. Please say that you'll consent to marry my brother. The words came tumbling out of her. Yes, I will. I would like that more than anything. To wed Sir Loras, to love him. Loras? Lady Olenna sounded annoyed. Don't be foolish, child. Kingsguard never wed. Didn't they teach you anything in Winterfell? You're speaking of my grandson Willis. He's a bit old for you, to be sure, but a dear boy for all that. Not the least bit oafish, and heir to Highgarden besides. Sansa felt dizzy. One instant her head was full of dreams of Loras. The next they had all been snatched away. Willis? Willis? Aye, she said stupidly. Courtesy is a lady's armor. You must not offend them. Be careful what you say. I do not know, Sir Willis. I have never had the pleasure, my lady. Is he as great a knight as his brothers? Lifted her high into the air. The bear, the bear. No, Marjorie said. He's never taken vows. Her grandmother frowned. Tell the girl the truth. The poor lad is crippled, and that's the way of it. He was hurt as a squire riding his first tourney, Marjorie confided. His horse fell and crushed his leg. That snake of a Dornishman was to blame, that Oberyn Martell, his maester as well. I called for a knight, but you're a bear, a bear, a bear, all black and brown and covered with hair. One thing I would say about the song is that, well, first off, that kind of sounds a little bit like Sansa wanting a knight and getting a fool, but it's a bear instead of a fool, obviously. But the other thing I would like to say is that, I mean, yes, of course, it's about cunnilingus and all that. But my point is, we see that giants resemble bears, and so it does make me wonder if it may have originally been inspired by some sort of giant human relationship. Anyway, just a thought.
Oh, well, the bear always just makes me think of House Mormont and
Yeah.
the honeyed hair. I mean, at this point, the honeyed hair person we're talking about is Val.
Sure.
So,
and Mormont would be associated with the North and so forth. Sure.
Yeah.
Willis has a bad leg, but a good heart, said Marjorie. He used to read to me when I was a little girl and draw me pictures of the stars. You will love him as much as we do, Sansa. She kicked and wailed, the maid so fair, but he licked the honey from her hair. Her hair, her hair. He licked the honey from her hair.
Also, his horse fell on him, and we're talking about Tyrells being skin changers. Could there have been some inner plot, maybe from Sir Garland, possibly to become the heir?
Maybe. Maybe. Failed murder plot? Yeah, could be.
Sorry, Charles.
Yeah, he's probably going to like that one.
Yeah.
When might I meet him? Asked Sansa hesitantly. Soon, promised Marjorie. When you come to Highgarden, after Joffrey and I are wed, my grandmother will take you. I will, said the old woman, patting Sansa's hand and smiling a soft, wrinkly smile. I will indeed. Then she sighed and squealed and kicked the air. My bear, she sang, my bear so fair. And off they went, from here to there, the bear, and the maiden fair. Butterbones roared the last line, leapt into the air, and came down on both feet with a crash that shook the wine cups on the table. The woman laughed and clapped. I thought that dreadful song would never end, said the Queen of Thorns. But look, here comes my cheese. Up next, Storm 7, John 1. John misidentifies a man singing about a Dornishman, a wife, and a sword. This is the first time that John fails to identify him, and he'll be singing the same song the second time.
Gee, I wonder who that is.
See, Triple Targaryens, episode 6. Also, going back to the conversation about Willis, Sansa, Mary, and their kids would be the Tyrells ruling the North, playing the long. Right. Playing the long game, right. Yeah. I thought it was a really good conversation last week. That's just a good connection. They died the same way. Their horse fell on them. I love GRM's wordplay. Oh yeah, a cunning linguist, exactly. Yes, and I'm saying the linguist might have actually been a giant, or a Mormont, as Dude points out. 7 save us. Yay, Charles, winter roses. Yeah, exactly.
That is odd. I'm sitting there thinking of giants now myself.
Well, I also like to think about what role could Eleanor play, right? Speaking of winter roses and the concept that the white rose. See, Joe figures episode 1, right? So the Starks do represent the roses, the white rose of the wars of the white and red roses, and so with her name being Eleanor Tyrell, it's just close enough to make you go, huh? So she's engaged to Ambrose. What's his first name? It starts with an A as well, I'm pretty sure. It's like Ashlyn Ambrose or something. I can't remember. But anyway, I think he's a squire right now, but presumably she'd be wedding him after he became a knight. Um, Arlen Ambrose. I can't remember what his name is. Anyway, I have wondered if maybe somehow um, she'll inherit, and maybe there'll be some sort of bigamy associated with her, or she'll break off her engagement to marry somebody else. Because I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on there. It feels like there could be something with Eleanor. I do think that when people claim that these houses are going to get like wiped out or something because of their partnership with the Lannisters or whatever, I'm like, I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. I
Well, I
definitely,
mean,
I don't know. Anyway,
House Stark seemed to be the only one that had the least amount of Starks. I mean, bloodline. Everybody else just seems to be kind of, well, Mormont also. But I mean,
well,
most of the
I don't know. I
southern
mean,
houses are just throwing their seed around kind of all over the place, and there's tons to take on the name.
well,
House Baratheon doesn't, but
As Cat tells us, though, there's actually multiple cousins in the Vale
yeah,
that are relatively recent. So it's people like, oh, the Starks. It's weird that there's so few of them. I'm like, are there really that few? There's a theory about the Red One twins trying hard for the cousins to eventually inherit Highgarden or rule the Reach. Yeah, rule the Reach. Yeah, it's nothing like that. I haven't seen it in a long time.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I know Preston has talked about that. It's so one of the things that's weird about the red wines is that they seem oddly unconcerned about the fact that they have that nobody seems to know who their heir is, and they strangely didn't pursue um, a second great um, landed location. You had all these families like with getting places for their second sons and things after the Blackwater, and the red wines were just like, cut our taxes for a while, right? And not even though we know they have a succession crisis, and that the two twins don't even seem to know which one is first, um, and so
Well,
it's almost as if they have a long-term plan for something better, right? And so
yeah,
that's kind of where the idea is that the red wine twins are actually the red wines are specifically angling to get an even better place for one of their two sons, right? Their two
yeah, I
twins.
agree 100% that there's definitely and I know it's been talked about. I can't remember who they had on with the red wines about a second plot to better themselves with someone else other than House Lannister or the Joffrey and Tomlin and all of them. Isn't it Fagon and Dorn, or is it someone else?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I can't remember. I know there's a couple of houses that were named big houses that are playing the long game.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it is suspicious, right? There's something going on with the red wines, and
Yeah,
they're clearly George has clearly made a major focus while never actually resolving things and sort of making it obvious that there's something there.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean,
so yeah,
everybody in this story that's not Stark or Stark blooded is jockeying for land and power and everything. And for them to just say, hey, save us some money, well, what are they going to be using that money for that
right.
they're saving and not get
They're already
land?
filthy rich.
Right, right,
So what's the payoff there?
right. Well, I mean, they had to ask for something, supposedly. I mean, to make it look good. So, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, and
they
of course they
definitely
also
have
have a
something.
huge fleet. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have a huge fleet now. We don't know what's going to happen after the Sea of Blood thing that's going to happen with the.
Right, as we keep mentioning, there is another fleet potentially coming with the High Towers, and the whole thing with Liness and Jorah potentially um, being somewhat manipulated in order to get Liness where she needs to be able to deliver a fleet to the High Towers.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot of manipulation going on in story and from above. So that, I mean, I go ahead
Well,
and tell you that I told you I was going to pre-read. Well, it didn't work out that way. But I that was a really good Sansa chapter.
well, and I didn't leave anything out. I didn't even because it's almost all dialogue, and I don't usually like to cut dialogue.
Yeah. Well, I
So I
mean,
didn't cut anything
the
out.
song extends the chapter, and it also, you have to pay attention to the conversation that's going on, because as you're paying attention to the conversation, boom, then you got to break to the song again, and then boom, back to the conversation. Part of me is like, well, is the conversation the main part that you need to be listening to, or should you be listening to the song?
Yeah.
And could the song actually be referring to House Umber? Because I mean, if you're talking about giants being,
Yep.
and I mean, and they're very large men. I mean, just look at Big John, Little John, Great John, or Small John. So they definitely could have some giant blood in there for sure.
Yep.
And they also, you got in the world book, all the old houses from the first men all had special powers to form the Westeros Avengers.
This is one of our longer episodes. We probably need to start wrapping.
Oh yeah, it's 105. I'm gonna turn back into a pumpkin here in a second. Okay.
Yeah.
That was a really good chapter. I'm happy with it.
The next one is Mance. You know, we meet Mance the first time we meet Mance, and as I said, we kind of meet him a second time with the same intro, with John once again confusing who he is.
Well, it's definitely a chapter that we're going to have to take our time with, and
it's
really
almost as if George is telling us something about Mance and mistaken identity. I can't figure out what it would be.
I don't know. But, okay. With every Friday, I try to wish everybody to have a safe, happy, fun weekend. We care about all of y'all. This channel would not be the same without y'all, without Richard. So I appreciate everybody. So please stay safe, and be ready for John Monday, because I can't remember how long the chapter is, but like I said, I think we're really going to have to take our time on it and pay real close attention to every paragraph.
It's certainly a key.
That one, since I got a weekend and I'll have help with Carter, that one might go ahead and pre-read just to be on my A game. But
and you can rewatch Triplet Figurines episode 6.
Isn't that 7 now?
Lucy, how many is that? Actually, she already said the Holy 7.
Okay. Well, one to grow on. All right. Well,
sounds good.
We'll see everybody Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. Again, thank y'all, and y'all have a good weekend. 9.
Yeah,
y'all be good.
Throw a few more in there. Sounds good.
All right.
Have a good
Bye. Y'all have a good weekend. Bye, Richard.